Okay, folks, we are live here in the studio. I'm just getting my backup recording ready to go here while the guys join in. And there they are.
Here we
Mike Kill
are.
and, of course, Bill Van Ryn from Groovy Doom. How you
Hello.
guys doing?
I'm
Good,
doing
good,
good.
good.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. So, welcome to episode 14 of the Fright Lounge. And if you're wondering why I keep looking up, it's because my configuration in the office here has changed and my monitor is at the moment above me. So, I'll be looking like this the whole time. Anyways, this is the show in which horrorologists, the best horrorologists in town, will discuss horror in depth and get a conversation going for seasoned horror viewers as well as newbies alike. So, I am Rigor, of course, from the Then Is Now podcast, as well as the Cult Movie Lounge and the East Meets the West. And before we really get into it, I just want to apologize for having to cancel last week's show at the last minute. The Friday before, I was fixing my car and I was getting devoured by mosquitoes. And then Sunday, like halfway through the day, all my energy just left me to the point where I had to take the next day off at work, and I just had no energy. And we thought maybe it was a diabetic issue or something, but I think it was the mosquito bites, because then all of a sudden Tuesday morning I was perfectly fine. So like we said, joining me today is Bill Van Ryn and Mike Kill. Spency is actually here at the house. I asked him to poke his head in to say hi at the beginning of the show, but he didn't want to tease his fans who've been clamoring for his return. So you'll see.
There's so many. It wouldn't be fair to them.
Right.
Elusive. That's the best attitude.
Exactly. So Bill, we touched on this on the last, you were on the last Then Is Now episode, which I haven't posted yet. But we finally got to meet in person at the April Ghouls Drive-In Monsterama. Do you want to tell the folks about that?
What a fine weekend that was. I wish we could go back and do it all over again.
Yeah. Tell the folks what it entails.
It's a biannual event at the Riverside Drive-In in Vandergrift, PA. 2 nights, 4 movies each night. Always fantastic films. In the fall, there's more of like a 70s and earlier flavor to it. And the one that happens in April is usually 80s themed horror movies. And this year there were some real screamers, including a couple that I hadn't seen yet. Slumber Party Massacre Part 2, which just blew my mind. And the other one that I hadn't seen was Silent Madness, another slasher from the early 80s. This one was in 3D. Actually, I said early 80s. It was a little bit later. It was 84, after the initial slasher cycle. It was probably shot earlier than that, but it didn't come out until 84. It was in 3D originally. We did not get to watch it in 3D at the drive-in, but nevertheless, it was a stunning experience. Vivica Linfour is in it, on Padelia from Creepshow. And boy, what a riot she is. I love her.
Yeah, that was fun. I finally did get I got the Blu-ray of the Silent Madness, and that actually has a version in 3D. So I'm looking forward to watching that at some point. All right, cool. So I am just downloading some pictures that Bill sent us here. And what was the other thing I was going to say? I guess we'll just get into it. So we've got some crazy films today for you folks. We've got Hellhole from 1985, Mario Bava's Bay of Blood, also known as Twitch of the Death Nerve, from 1971, and Dave Cronenberg's RABID from 1977. Now, I have to admit, in trying to prepare for the show, including last week, my recollection has been kind of spotty. Thankfully, I have tons of notes and all that, but it's because I'm also doing the Cult Lounge, which is 2 other movies that I've had to watch that are kind of similar, and in and around watching 4 soap operas a day for work and other TV shows and movies and whatnot. So bear with me if I screw up every once in a while.
You're my friends.
Oh, good.
I would also like to say bear with me, because I have been sneezing and my nose has been running like a faucet. So I'm doing the best I can to moderate that and still participate. I apologize if this is hideous, but it actually helps a little bit.
If it starts getting bigger and bigger, we're going to get worried.
I know, right?
You look like Claude Rains in The Invisible Man.
Yeah. And then I might mute myself at random moments in order to sneeze or whatever, but we'll see how it goes.
All right, folks. So first up, well, let's talk about Bay of Blood from 1971. As I said, also known as Carnage or Twitch of the Death Nerve and Bloodbath.
Good Lord. Yet
yeah.
another movie with multiple titles. Huh?
Oh, there are so many. Rigor hasn't even scratched the surface.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Let me read the quick synopsis. We'll talk a little bit, and then Bill, you can give us sort of a history on the titles there. So basically, the murder of a wealthy countess triggers a chain reaction of brutal killings in the surrounding Bay Area, as several unscrupulous characters try to seize her large estate. So Bill, let's get started with you. When did you first see this?
I don't really remember when the first time I saw it. This wasn't one that they showed on TV, so I would have had to have seen it in the video era. I don't think I rented it in the 80s. I don't remember it being on tape. I'm sure it was, but I just it never attracted my attention on VHS in the mid to late 80s. I probably saw it like in the late 90s when I started getting into like really starting to explore the films of Mario Bava. And I had read some stuff about it, about how it was sort of an inspiration for Friday the 13th. And
Yes.
I was stunned when I actually saw it, and I saw how much Friday the 13th, especially Friday the 13th Part 2, took from this film. There are two murders in Twitch of the Death Nerve that are almost verbatim, shot for shot, repeated in Friday Part 2, copied off of Twitch of the Death Nerve, aka A Bay of Blood. So it's exciting.
Yeah. Mike, is this your first viewing for you?
Yes. First viewing was last week, and luckily we canceled it, so I had a chance to watch it again this morning before we started.
Did it make more sense the second time?
A little bit, yes.
Yeah. This is a tough one, trying to get through it because it gets confusing.
Mm-hmm.
Bill, do you want to tell us a little bit about the why it has different titles, and I'll start putting some pictures up.
Yeah, I don't really know why this particular film had so many alternate titles, but it was originally released in Italy. And my Italian isn't that good. Ecologia del delitto, ecology of a murder, I think is the way that translates. And it was also released as Chain Reaction, the Italian translation for Chain Reaction, which Rigor mentioned in the synopsis, that it started a chain reaction. So those were the original titles. And then when it was released in America, by the way, it came out in 1971 in Italy and probably other countries in Europe. And then by the time it came to the States, it was 1972. Hallmark Releasing. I always jump at a chance to talk about Hallmark Releasing. They were a little film distributor subsidiary of AIP, and they were based in Boston. They had great success with Last House on the Left. And they were the ones who got a hold of, Mark of the Devil was another one that they put out. They had a great ad campaign that included a vomit bag that they gave you when you went into the theater to see Mark of the Devil. Oh,
I have one of those from when my parents went,
isn't it?
Yeah.
Mark of the Devil. I gotta write that down.
Yeah, with Herbert Lom.
It's like a witch trial type thing. So there was that. They got a hold of the film. They initially put it out as Carnage. That was the original title that they chose for it in the States. And I don't know if you have any of the images of Carnage.
Yeah, I think so. Oh, here it is. Yeah. And I'll go live with this. Share the carnage.
There we go. Well, Carnage Erotica. See, it was originally Carnage, and then they changed it to Carnage Erotica, a Psycho 1972 style. They really wanted to get you into the theater to see this. A special ambulance will be available to assist any patrons overcome by the explicit scenes of horror in this movie.
That's awesome. And this is from the Boston area because it's got the 114 driving from Peabody and the Medford Twin at
My
Wellington
God.
Circle. And I don't know. Oh, Canton. That's a little too far from where we grew up.
A lot of their alternate titles were originally tested in the New England area before they unleashed it on the country from coast to coast. Twitch of the Death Nerve was the title that they settled on. Here's another Carnage.
Great title.
Twitch of the Death Nerve. Oh yeah.
I think that's a great title for a horror movie.
You can't go wrong with that.
Yeah.
Nothing has quite prepared you for what you will see in Carnage.
It is not an X-rated film. Truthfully, I don't know how much violence was still in Twitch of the Death Nerve. I don't know if there were cuts made. I'm sure there were, because this movie is pretty explicit.
Yeah.
If it wasn't edited, then audiences may not have been prepared, because Carlo Rambaldi's special effects in this movie are quite convincing, including a great moment where one of the characters gets a machete in his face.
Yes.
So obviously that's
quite cool.
Mm-hmm.
No, Bill, is this picture here Last House Part 2? Is that another one?
That is another one. Yeah.
Wow.
Last House Part 2 was a title that it gets confusing here, because Last House Part 2 was sort of a placeholder title that Hallmark used. When they actually shipped the prints to the theaters, often it was not the same movie in every theater. Sometimes you were going to go see A Bay of Blood. Other times you were going to go see The Night Train Murders, aka Last Stop on the Night Train. We've talked about that movie here before.
Yeah.
So Last House Part 2 was sort of you didn't really know, the audience didn't know any different, because of course there was no movie called Last House Part 2. Nobody made a sequel to Last House on the Left. And it's hilarious because Last House on the Left came out in 1972, and Mario Bava's Bay of Blood was made in 1971. So how could it be a sequel?
I really need to see the original Last House on the Left. I you guys mention it all the time, and I looked it up and I added it to my list on my Fire Stick a while ago, but I have yet to watch it. I want to see the because they remade it years later, right? But I want to see the original one.
Tony Goldwyn, I think, was the father in the remake.
Oh.
So is this also one? Oh yeah, Twitch of the Death Nerve.
Twitch of the Death Nerve there, and the co-feature The Blind Dead. That's pretty amazing.
That would be an awesome double feature.
That was another Hallmark property, Tombs of the Blind Dead. They just called it The Blind Dead in the US.
Right. It's the first motion picture to require a face-to-face warning. What does that even mean?
Well, that was another gimmick that they came up. And when the movie, which was titled Carnage, it had that ambulance gimmick. But here it was a face-to-face warning station that you had to pass through. Like they had to tell you to your face that it was possible that you would not be the same after you witnessed Twitch of the Death Nerve.
Wow.
That's awesome. That's such a great way to get butts in seats, especially back then, you know?
Sure. Yeah. It's showmanship.
It was pretty violent. I mean, there were some not even like, yeah, I mean, violent, yes, violent, but just there were some just parts that were just gruesome. Like even if the part, are we worried about spoilers, or are we just saying whatever?
If you haven't seen the movie, it's been out for 50 years.
Yeah.
Okay. But the part where the guy they see the dead guy on the boat with the octopus on his face, it's like,
oh yeah,
we don't see him getting killed, but that is so disturbing and grotesque and just wonderful the way they did that. It was so well done.
We did see him get killed in the beginning,
right?
Well, but I mean, I'm sorry, I meant to say like in that scene.
Yeah,
it's not a violent scene per se, because we don't see him die at that moment, but we see him. Yeah,
there is an octopus eating his face.
Is this another one, Bill? Snuff?
Snuff is my game, yes. There was a notorious film in 1975 called Snuff. Oh. And what it was actually a film called The Slaughter that was from 1971, I think. And Hallmark purchased, no, it wasn't Hallmark, sorry, that put out Snuff. Somebody purchased Snuff, or The Slaughter, and they filmed a wraparound gimmick sequence of a movie producer. And it appears after the slaughter comes to an end, it looks like they murder one of the actresses from the film on camera, as if it was an actual snuff film. Well, to capitalize on that, because that caused a lot of controversy, and again, a lot of it was probably generated by the distributors, they hired a bunch of people to go picket the film as feminists about how the movie was degrading to women. Because the more outrage you can generate, the more money you're going to make, of course. And Hallmark figured, well, why not? Why don't we get in on this? And so they came up with this idea to put Twitch of the Death Nerve out again as Snuff Is My Game.
Wow. They were just really milking these movies, weren't they?
This was not a wide release. I think this was only in the New England area.
Yeah, I know the Boston area one with all the driving. Revere. Medfa.
Yeah.
The Ponset Circle.
Wow. I remember that. I think the screen is still there, and now it's like a car dealership or something, but the screen still exists.
This was a UK video nasty, by the way. The title in the UK was Bloodbath.
Oh, okay.
That's a good title too.
That's funny. I know. So, of course, we picked this movie because I think in the last couple of shows that the three of us were together, we've mentioned Mario Bava. Did we already cover a Bava film? I don't think we did, Bill.
I'm sure we did. I'm pretty sure we've talked about Mario. If we haven't, we should have by now, because he's absolutely one of my favorite directors.
Yeah. The directing in this I thought was great. This is one of those movies I did read about for years. Growing up, I heard about it, and I heard that Friday the 13th ripped it off, but I didn't actually see it until a couple months ago, because I also talked about it on the Cult Movie Lounge. And it's just one of those movies that kind of sticks with you, even though I was having trouble figuring things out. I think this time around I finally got the plot figured out.
Yeah.
We've got a bunch of Italian actors.
So am I wrong in thinking that the spear through the two people fucking in the bed was one of the things that was ripped off by Friday the 13th?
Yes.
Yeah. Absolutely. And they cut it in Friday Part 2. They didn't actually show it. And they show it in Bay of Blood. So
yeah,
I don't understand.
What was the other you said, Bill, you said there was another death in Bay of Blood that was used in Friday 13th?
The machete to the face.
Oh, that one, really? Oh, wow.
Yeah, that was the guy in the wheelchair gets a machete in his face in Friday the 13th Part 2. And again, they cut that from the film. You don't actually get a full frontal image of it happening. You just see it from behind mostly.
Oh, that's too bad.
But yeah, in Twitch of the Death Nerve, Bay of Blood, there's a long lingering shot of him as he's dying there on the floor.
It's great. And then like, yeah, you're right. There's a long lingering shot of him dying. And then once he's dead, there's a shot of somebody yanking the weapon, the blade, out of his face, walking away, like a close up of his face. Like you see this big line that got chopped through his head. That was really, really well done.
The makeup in that was awesome, I thought.
Yeah.
Carlo Rambaldi, the guy who made E.T.
That's right. I forgot about that.
But the cut was a little too close to the guy's eye. I remember when he was dying, he was like, at one point he blinked in the middle of it.
Yeah.
In the middle of the shot. And I thought, oh, that makes it look not realistic. Like the fact that he blinked with this big giant thing in his eye,
Well, Ed, but you probably would. If
you probably would, but it just seemed like that. I don't know. Yeah, it just seemed funny.
Not that I've ever seen anything like that in person.
I guess because I knew it was a movie, and in my mind I was like, oh, they must have decided to go around the part where his eye was. Even when they took the blade out, you could sort of see that they didn't really make it look like it went into him in that spot. It was like which is reasonable, but you'd think like I don't know, but it was still awesome. It was still great. Like he opens the door and then whack right in the face.
Yeah. It's unexpected, there's no build up to it. He just goes to the front door and opens it, and bam, he's dead.
And that machete has the hooked end, which is really cool.
Yeah. I was really ready for those fucking teenagers to die. They were so goddamn annoying. They're so annoying.
And they just break into somebody's house and start having a party. It's like, who does that?
Like, who does that? Who are these people? And their friend, the other friend, the redheaded chick, or what? I don't remember if she was redheaded. I think she was. She
Yeah.
goes off for a swim. They go their separate ways. They go to the house. She goes to do her thing, and like hours go by. The sun goes down, and they don't even like attempt to find her or like where did she go or check in with her or look for her or anything. They all drive there in the same car, and then they're all running around doing stuff, and they just totally forget about her.
Well, the guy that got the machete in his face didn't like her. That was the girl that he was going to end up with.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the other girl ended up with the other guy in the bedroom. They were the couple. They were the real
Yeah.
couple, and the other two were just extraneous. So he was happy to let her go off and swim by herself, I guess.
Yeah, that's true. He was kind of became the third wheel because he was even his friend was like, "Would you go with the girl? There's
Yeah.
two girls here. Go with her. Stop hanging around us."
I think he even says they're only going to be here for another day or two. You know,
Yeah.
He calls her the kraut.
that's right.
He's like, you can have the kraut.
Have the crowd.
That's real nice.
So I think, all right, I'm going to try and attempt to break the plot down succinctly here, and you guys tell me if I'm wrong. So you got this old lady at the beginning in a wheelchair, and this guy who I assume was it her son, or he was he was younger than her, but he was still old. He hangs her, and then he turns around and he gets killed by somebody else.
Yeah.
And then it turns out that the realtor wanted the bay, or maybe he was a developer, and so he hired the dude who was he was like he worked at the property there. He was like the caretaker. So he hired that guy to kill the guy that killed the old lady. I don't know, some way, shape, or form, make sure the old lady was dead, so then they could take the land from her. But then you got this other couple that came for the reading of the will. Is that what it was? And they left their kids in the camper.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
yeah, so they get involved, and the guy in that couple looks kind of like the realtor guy. So I was getting
I
confused
know
the
they
first
all
time I
look the
watched it.
same.
You have it mostly right. The relationship between the guy who works on the property, Simon, that's the old lady is a countess, and she owns most of the bay. She controls it, and she's married. Her husband is the one who kills her, and her
Oh.
husband and the realtor were in on it together. Like they were gonna kill the countess because the husband would have sold the bay to the developer. He wanted to buy it and turn it into a resort. And she was like, no, I'm not going to sell it. This is, we're not going to have a bunch of people here. I like living here, and this is my home. So she had to die in order for them to sell that property. So the husband was going to sell the property after she was dead. But the guy who works on the property, Simon, that was her illegitimate son.
Oh, okay.
So she was kind of like, that's why she kept him there working on the property. And nobody really knew that this was her illegitimate son. And he witnessed her being murdered by her husband. And then he killed the husband right after it happened, right after the murder happened. And then it got really complicated because the developer had to get him on their side too. They had to get him to sell the property to them. And he enlisted the help of this, sexy assistant that he had to seduce the countess's husband into doing this. And
Right.
It all got really complicated there. And there was a daughter, the countess's daughter, her legitimate daughter that everybody knew was her daughter. And they saw Simon as, that was a possible contender for the rights to the bay. And he had figured it out too. And he wasn't going to sell either without getting a whole bunch of money. The developer thought he could just pay him off and give him a ticket out of the country to leave. But eventually they realized he figured out what they were doing and that they killed his mother, and he kills the woman. And then he ends up killing the developer too. They end up having a fight at some point in the developer's cool, ultra modern house. I want to live in the place where this movie takes place. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's
That house was awesome.
It's like a little exotic looking little community. And ironically, the place where Bava shot this did not have a lot of trees. It just looks that way in the movie. It was literally a case of sometimes there were shots in the movie that seemed like they were coming from inside a bunch of trees, but all that was people standing in front of the camera holding up branches in front of the camera because there were no trees around there to work with. So they had to make it look a little more heavily wooded. So they just sort of improvised.
Right. Right. And this film premiered in 71 at the something called the Avoriaz Film Festival. And I guess Christopher Lee went to see it because he liked Bava and he had worked with him on The Whip and the Body. And after seeing it, he goes, basically the quote is that he was completely revolted by the film. He was not happy.
Oh, good.
Which, you got to be doing something good if Christopher Lee finds it revolting. But it did get a special Rambaldi got special mention award at the well, first of all, I guess it got best makeup and special effects award at the Avoriaz, and then Rambaldi also got a special mention award at the Styges Film Festival in 71 for his makeup work here. Now, am I wrong? There was the actors for the most part were speaking English, weren't they?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
I think this was one of those movies where the actors were all speaking their native language and Bava just dubbed it in either Italian or English. There's an Italian dub and an English dub.
Oh, that's why some of the scenes. Okay.
Yeah, because I was watching their lips at the beginning and they were articulating English words, even if that wasn't their actual voice. So I thought that was interesting, but like I said, the first time I watched this, so it was very confusing. And I write about soap operas for a living. I was like,
yeah,
wait a minute, what?
They really withheld a lot of information until the end. Like,
yes,
I'm watching the movie going, okay, like who is this person, and why do we care that she died, and what are they talking about, and how come, and they spent so much time on those teenagers that ended up getting murdered, and they were just like in the wrong place at the wrong time, basically, I guess.
Right.
So yeah, that was really gratuitous.
I thought they were central to the plot, so I was trying to figure out how they figured in.
Well, don't forget there's the spacey medium lady that lives there with her entomologist husband that likes to pin bugs to boards and watch them die.
To them. Yeah.
Oh my God,
so weird.
But that's the interesting,
really annoying.
That's the interesting thing about this movie is that there are all these murders, and it's not one person committing the murders. The murders are all committed by somebody different. Like Simon kills the teenagers because she discovered the Count's body in the bay, the Kraut.
Right.
She discovered the body, so she knew something. She was going to go tell the other kids, and then she ran screaming up to the house. So he had to kill her, and if she was dead, he had to kill the other ones too.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
And then who killed the psychic chick? Who chopped her head off?
I think that was the daughter. Killed her.
Oh,
and
the daughter was the one with the camper and the two kids, right?
Yes.
Okay.
She killed the psychic, and she and her husband killed the other guy, the husband of the psychic. Because remember, like she tells her, she's like ruthless. This Renata is her name. Claudine Alger is the actress who plays her. She tells him, she's like, if you don't go kill him, he's going to ruin everything and we're not going to get all this money. Instantly, her husband becomes a murderer and chases after him and like throttles him, just strangles him to death.
That's funny.
Yeah.
That's funny. I did love the camera work in this movie. And there's one shot where you just see an eyeball peering through some wicker, and it just was in and of itself was just creepy, beyond creepy.
Yeah. The camera work was good.
Bava always is, and it's all him. That was all Bava that came up with all those camera tricks. And of course, this movie, another reason that I love this movie so much is one of Bava's trademarks is there's a crazy zoom that he does all the time. He's like all about zooming in and zooming out. This movie has so much zooming that you get a little dizzy.
Yeah, there were some moments that were. Yeah, but I was glad for that though, because even when I was confused by the story, I was enjoying the visuals, so that kept me interested. Instead of going, "Fuck this, I can't figure this out," I was like, "Oh, that was kind of cool." I'm gonna keep watching.
I love the kid's dune buggy. It reminded me of Wonderbug. Remember that show?
Yeah, me too.
They found a magic horn, a new car was born.
Oh my God, he remembers the song. Holy shit.
Wonderful Wonderbug.
I kind of felt a tiny bit like the guy who played Simon. To myself, as I was watching it the second time through, I was referring to him as Dexter Morgan because he looks a tiny bit like guy who played Dexter, Michael C. Hall. Michael C. Hall, who played Dexter on the Dexter TV series.
He must be cousin to Anthony Michael Hall.
I know. That's what I did. I almost like said Anthony Michael Hall, but I think his name is Michael C. Hall.
That's funny.
He doesn't look exactly like him, but he looks a little bit like him. So I started referring to him as Dexter.
There was definitely familiarity about him. I was like, oh, I think I've seen this guy before, but I didn't get a chance to look it up.
Yeah.
But first of all, there's a lot of good kills, as we mentioned in this, then of course another scene that was sort of has been used in the Friday the 13th films is when the woman goes into the room and all the dead bodies are kind of laid out.
Yeah.
That's a trope of a 80s slasher film.
Right.
And don't forget, at the end of the movie, the two kids that are in the camper, they end up killing their parents for no apparent reason. Like they just shotgun them down, and then they laugh about it. They're like, "Oh, they're good at playing dead."
Right. Yeah. They're so good at playing dead. Let's go play in the woods.
In a synopsis I read, it said they thought it was, a pellet gun or something. They didn't think it was a real gun.
The little girl, I don't know if you noticed this, Nicoletta Almy, she has been in so many movies. She has a very distinctive look. She's like, eerie looking sort of little redhead girl. And she was in Barren Blood.
Okay.
She a bunch of things, a lot of giallo. Who Saw Her Die, Deep Red. She was in Footprints on the Moon, which we just did on the Drive-In Asylum double feature not too long ago. She was in Flesh for Frankenstein, also known as Andy Warhol's Frankenstein. It had to be said, right?
Flesh. Flesh for Frankenstein.
Love me some Billy Idol.
I always think of that when I hear that title.
I always think of what was it? Bay of Blood. I kept thinking Bay of Pigs. Like every time I thought of the title Bay of Blood, I was like, Bay of Pigs. Bay of Pigs Blood. There's
a new movie that's out. I don't think it's out anymore, but it was called 80 for Brady. But the way the font is, I always, like, as soon as I glance at it, I would think it was said Bo for Brady, and Bo Brady's a character on Days of Our Lives that just came back from the dead after like 7 years. I'm like, what the hell is Bo for Brady?
He came back to life.
Yeah, he was frozen, and he died of brain cancer. But then this villain lady who was obsessed with him, cryogenically froze him and cured him of the brain cancer and brought him back.
That's crazier than anything you would ever see in a horror movie.
Yeah,
or at least on a par with it. One of my favorite movies is this is sort of a tangent. One of my favorite movies is Tootsie.
Oh yeah,
Tootsie. And yes.
There's that great scene where he's trying to figure out how to get out of this situation that he's gotten in, and he just totally, like, they go live on the soap opera, and he invents this crazy story out of nowhere about why there would be a man dressed as a woman that came to that hospital as an administrator. And that's really not too far from something you would really see on a soap opera.
Right.
Yeah, he just pulls it out of his ass, and then that is so great.
And Bill Murray goes, "That is one nutty hospital."
That's such a great movie.
Oh, every line is just golden in it. You can watch it 100 times and find something new to laugh about every time.
Yeah.
I'll have to rewatch it. I haven't seen it, God, in decades.
Terry Garr should have won the Oscar for that. She was nominated, but they gave the Oscar to Jessica Lange as sort of like a makeup because they couldn't give it to her for Sophie's Choice or Frances, one of the two movies. I can't remember which one. Maybe Frances. So they gave it to her for Tootsie and robbed Terry Garr, who's brilliant in it. Terry Garr has like so many breakdowns in that movie. My favorite thing she says is like he's asking her about the soap opera. She's like, I'm totally not right for it. He's like, well, why? What kind of part is it? She goes, a woman.
Hilarious. Oh my god. All right, so let's wrap up Bay of Blood here. So Mike Hill, final thoughts on this film.
Final thoughts on Bay of Blood. Visually very cool. I got the sense that that Bava and his crew had fun shooting it. Without going into too much detail, but yeah, some of the shots, there were a lot of moments where I went, oh, you know, like while I was watching it, like, oh, that's kind of cool, like where they took. But I did think there were some. The plot did seem a little convoluted until the end when they explained things, and even then, there were moments of like, huh? But a second time through, it did make a little bit more sense, and I thought the pacing was a little off. At times, it didn't seem like it had an overall momentum. It sort of just drifted from scene to scene until things finally came together. But it was good. I don't know. I don't think I would watch it again. Oh, I have a question. I mean, now that I've seen it twice, I think I'm good. Two questions. Did they use a real octopus in the boat on the guy's face? Do you know? Does anybody know? Or was it like a prop octopus?
It was probably dead, but it does move, so maybe it was alive.
It seemed. I mean, I was just wondering if the movements were, you know, simulated or. And the other question was, shit. What was the other question? All right, it'll come back to me. But when the psychic woman gets her head chopped off, is there like ground up hamburger and stuff inside the neck socket or something? There's some weird stuff in there, like in that split second moment where the head gets chopped off and you can see the neck socket. There looked like there was like ground up hamburger in there or something. Does anybody know if that's what they used?
Braunschweiger.
What is it?
I beg your pardon?
It was Braunschweiger.
Braunschweiger?
Yes. No, I don't know what it was. That's another thing, by the way, that Friday
Cat
the
food?
13th ripped off. That the decapitation. There's a decapitation in that too.
Yeah.
I was glad she got decapitated because I found her so fucking annoying. And I really liked the guy's weapon. It's kind of like this is the first time I was so busy trying to figure out what was going on. The second time I was able to relax and just enjoy it a little bit because I was like, all right, you know, oh, this is kind of cool, and I know this part. And of course, if she throws the hot water, the woman throws the boiling water in the guy's face at the end when she's trying to escape, and then, like an idiot, fails to escape, even though she had that wonderful opportunity. She still fucks it up and gets killed.
She was a bad egg.
She was a bad egg, yes.
Oh man, that's funny. Yeah, I really enjoyed this film. Like I said, we all said it's very confusing. You got to watch it a couple of times, but of course I love Bava's directing, and I love this movie's place in horror film history, especially being, you know, a huge influence on the first few Friday the 13th films. I think it gets better over repeated viewing, so I would recommend it to folks who haven't seen it yet. So we are going to move on to our next film, which is RABID from 1977, and I'm going to share the picture.
Not Rabbit, but RABID.
RABID, as
RABID.
you see.
Would be kind of cool if there was a horror movie about a rabbit, but
I'm
Well,
sorry it's so tiny.
Yeah.
I apologize like that all the time.
Yeah, this one's a PNG file. I had to open it a different way, but it looks cool though. And comfortably cool, actually.
Oh, but bum.
You can't trust your mother, your best friend. 1 minute they're perfectly normal, the next rabid. Now this is one of those movies for me. I never saw it when it came out, but I remember when it came out. It was like the slew of Cronenberg films, and they all, as a kid, scared me. I think I had seen The Brood. And so, but then that was so terrifying that this one I couldn't even watch. I didn't watch it until I was in my 20s. But
and what did you think of it when you saw it in your 20s?
Oh, I
Was
loved
it. Terrifying.
Well, yeah, but I loved it anyway.
Of course.
What about you, Bill?
Oh, you might as well ask me if I like the blood that courses through my body. This is one of my favorites. Both of them, actually, that we've talked about so far, Bay of Blood and this one, are just stunning films. But Rabid holds a special place in my heart because I love those early Cronenberg films. Everything that he did, of course, is going to be great. But this, there's something special about those early cheaper. I wouldn't call them cheap, but they were they were lower budget films, and they just had wild imagination with
Yeah.
implications that went beyond the actual film itself. Like, there's what's happening on the surface, but then there's always the implications of what it could mean underneath of it. Like, where is humanity going? That's always the message of Cronenberg's films.
Right.
And Rabid is especially disturbing in that regard, because here's somebody that medical science has taken away her very humanity. The heroine in the film, Rose, played by Marilyn Chambers, a great performance by Marilyn Chambers, by the way, who was only known as a porn actress in the movie Behind the Green Door, which she was one of the best, the savviest porn performers in the 70s. And this is when porn was still, it was unknown where porn was going to go as a genre. Like, were people going to embrace hardcore pornography in movies? That was a brand new thing, that you could show something like that, or at least reasonably new, when Behind the Green Door came out. So she somehow managed to get the makers of Behind the Green Door to cut her in on the box office. She got a percent, and she didn't take a standard fee up front. She took a percent, and it made her very wealthy, because of course Behind the Green Door was a big hit. She was the highest paid performer in a porn film, I believe, for many, many years.
That's unbelievable. Yeah, she said in 77, people are curious about my ability to perform. They don't know what I'm capable of doing. I have to work harder, and it's more of a challenge winning people over. But she did it. I mean, like you said, she puts on a great performance in this movie.
Her character is this woman who's in a car accident, or a motorcycle accident rather. And in order to save her life, they take her to the closest place where they could perform some kind of medical surgery on her, which happens to be a plastic surgery clinic, where they have, they've been working on this experimental skin grafting technique. And I don't know how familiar, you are with the logistics of skin grafting, but if they take skin from your butt and put it on your face, it's still your butt skin on your face. Right. Well, these people were working on a way to make it turn into your face, like it would take on the properties of what was around it. This flesh would become natural instead of just, misplaced flesh on your body. So they gave her these skin graft treatments, and it, caused her body to mutate. And when she woke, she was unconscious after the accident. And when she woke, she was no longer human as she was beforehand, because now she had developed this freak mutation where she grew what is literally a syringe in the shape of a penis under her arm, in her armpit, and it comes out of a vaginal opening and penetrates her victims and sucks blood out of them. And even though her victims don't die, she infects them with a virulent form of rabies, and mass panic erupts in Canada. It could happen.
Yeah. Could definitely see it happening with all the crazy surgeries they're doing these days. But yeah, and I didn't get that it looked vaginal. To me, it looked like a sphincter. So that's what I was thinking.
Maybe a butthole then, I guess.
Some orifice related to.
So Michael, is this another first viewing for you?
Yes. Yes. And after watching Bay of Blood, I really liked this movie because it was pretty straightforward story-wise. Like, it was pretty easy to see, oh, A leads to B, B leads to C. This is what's happening. This is what's going on. She's in this condition. They're trying to figure out
what the problem is and how to stop it. And it was much more linear and it was comforting for my brain after watching Bay of Blood. But yeah, I thought I liked it better. I liked it more than I expected to, actually. When I read the synopsis, I was like, oh God, like another one of these like people getting infected. Like, I don't know. It just it's not that's not always my favorite like premise for a movie, but they did an interesting thing. And I was trying to figure out. It took me a while it took me a while watching the movie to figure out what Bill just described about how she was extracting the blood from her victims and stuff. Because the first couple of kills, I was like, wait, what just happened?
Yeah.
Like, did she bite? She didn't bite him. Like, where did huh? And then finally, little by little, I began to realize, oh, okay, but she was the only one who had the mutation. Other people got infected, but they
Right.
developed the funky.
She was Typhoid Mary. She had her own thing. It was this new part, this new organ in her body, which she tried to eat normal food and she couldn't anymore. She would smell appetizing food. Like she gets in a truck with the guy when she escapes the clinic and she's like, oh, that smells so good. He has a sandwich or something.
Yeah.
And he gives it to her and she takes a bite and like he has to stop the truck so she can vomit. So unfortunately, she can't go back to the way she was before.
And she tries to drink cow's blood and has the same reaction, right?
Yeah, it has to be human blood.
Yeah.
Right. And this film was also produced by Ivan Reitman, who also did Shivers that we covered a couple episodes ago. The premises were very similar too, in that whatever the disease is spreads and turns people into sex crazed, maniacs. And in this one, it was almost like a zombie movie, but they weren't really zombies. It was just like the similar pattern that, you get bit and you turn. And that's it. From there, I think they're nuts.
And I was glad that they didn't start focusing on the spreading of it. Like I was glad that they mostly concentrated on her, I almost said Linda Lovelace. That's not her name.
Marilyn Chambers.
Marilyn Chambers. They focused on her character the most, which I was glad of because that was the most interesting part for me.
But I liked the news segments. I liked when they were talking about it because it reminded me of the pandemic that we just went through, where they're like, everybody needs to get a card and get inoculated.
And there's the people that are spraying down everything, like the government people in suits and everything. It's very suspicious of the government, this movie.
Yeah.
They're going to come and they're going to like take control of everything, and they're going to be in hazmat suits, but you're going to be out there getting sick with this rabies.
Yeah.
And the premise also reminded me of I Drink Your Blood from 1971, which it's one of the ones that famously was always on a double bill with I Eat Your Skin. But it's basically this kid puts rabies in these pies and the hippies eat them and go crazy.
Oh my
Another
God.
stunning film. Yeah.
That's a fun one. We'll have to add that one.
At the end, she dies and they toss her in the back of a trash truck and trash truck drives away.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I kind of zoned out at the very, very end, and then I looked back and I was like, oh, okay.
And what do you guys think that's supposed to symbolize? Is it, she's just thrown away like the rest of the trash?
Did she die by starving herself, or did she?
No, she was killed by one of her victims.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
She couldn't come to terms with the fact she didn't believe that she was the cause of all of this sickness that was going around.
Right.
And her partner told her. He finally sees her while she's victimizing her best friend, and that's the first time you really see her armpit with that penis thing sticking out of it. And she has this confrontation with him, and he tells her that you're the reason that this is happening, and she denies it. So she runs off. He doesn't know where she is. He falls down a stairwell and gets knocked unconscious, and she takes off. And really, she's just in another place with this guy she met in the lobby. And she had taken blood from him, and he was passed out, and she was calling on the phone. She was saying, I just took a little bit of blood. I'm gonna wait till he wakes up and everything's gonna be okay, because it's not me that's causing this. And of course, he's a zombie when he wakes up and he kills her.
Right. That's right. And what
And the guy she's talking to is like, "Don't wait there. Get out of there. Get out of there." Like,
Yeah.
you just infected him. He's you can't stay there. Yeah.
She's the monster in the film, and yet she's the most sympathetic character in it, which is
Yeah.
pretty. That's a pretty remarkable achievement.
Yeah.
yeah, and Marilyn Chambers pulls it off too. She's totally believable.
But
But
I think she probably didn't have a lot of acting chops because she wasn't an actress, at least until she did Behind the Green Door. I think that was the first time she was on camera. Or no, wait, she was in Together, which was sort of a it was the Sean Cunningham made that before Last House on the Left, and it was another Hallmark release. It was supposed to be like a porn film, but really it was just an R-rated type of softcore thing. She was in Together, and then Behind the Green Door, but she probably didn't have a lot of acting ability, but it works in this movie because her character is alien as well. Like her character doesn't know what's going on. She's confused. She's a little spaced out. So Marilyn Chambers really was able to make that feel real.
Yeah.
right. And there's a scene where she's in the movie theater, and I tried to figure out. They show the marquee at one point, and the films are called Party Swappers and Models for Pleasure. So I looked them up, but they were just made up for the film, I believe. But this creepy guy shows up, and he sees her, and rather than watch the movie, he's like hitting on her, and it was just so uncomfortable. I hated that scene. Not that it was a bad scene, but I mean, it just made me uncomfortable.
That's one of my favorite moments in the movie because it's the typical thing. I mean, that is a real thing that unaccompanied females face every day in public situations like that. In social situations, men tend to see an unaccompanied female as an opportunity, and they move in and start and he does it, and of course it results in his doom because she's a vampire with a penis in her armpit.
Yeah, it's great too, and she's very nonchalant about it, and then like, can I sit up here next to you and put that? I was like, yeah, sure, okay, yeah, I guess so, okay, sure, yeah, and and then he becomes the victim.
And it's funny because she just leaves him, and it looks like he's just passed out or whatever, falling asleep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was good.
She took it out of his hand. You see the wound is on his hand.
Yeah.
So when he was feeling her up, she got him.
Yeah.
I think the original title of the film was Mosquito.
Really?
I'm pretty sure.
Interesting. What I want to know though is who arms a mall cop with a machine gun?
I know. What in the fuck was that?
Especially
wait a minute.
in Canada.
Well, the Santa, a mall cop with a machine gun. Well, because there was this virus going around. Security had been ramped up.
That's right.
Okay.
It was another, the militarization of society and martial law, and how something, can escalate once people are there with machine guns. Duh. So, I guess Cronenberg was making a statement about that.
Interesting. Okay, that makes sense. Because I was just thinking he's just his regular job. He carries a machine gun around. He accidentally kills the mall Santa, though. That was horrible.
Like, whoops.
I know. I was thinking that too during that scene. I'm like, what the hell? What's he doing with that gun?
And he didn't look like he had any training whatsoever in it. He just pulled the trigger and let the gun move him around.
Yeah.
He was not familiar with that weapon.
No. And then he looks up at the end and he goes, "Oh, Jesus Christ," or something like.
Yeah.
Realizes he just killed 6 people. It's like, God damn it.
It's like the old Mad Magazine cartoon of there's a bad guy with a machine gun and there's a crowd of people and Superman jumps down and he's shooting and the bullets are bouncing off him, and then Superman looks around and all the people are dead from the ricochet. Man, there was one cool kill. I thought it was very inventive, and it was another thing that sort of sets it apart from being confused with zombie films, is that some of these infected people take this jackhammer and plow right through a car.
That was horrifying. Absolutely horrifying. The other disturbing murder in the film, you don't see it. It happens off camera, but there's a baby that dies.
Oh
in this
yeah,
movie.
that's right. That's right.
Uh,
Oh, and there was all kinds of crazy stuff. What was the with the dude with the eyeball and when he's in a diner and he goes nuts?
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, it's like the ultimate Karen experience. He's like, I want food, I want it now.
Oh man! And then another scene where the doctor cuts the nurse's finger and then he starts chewing on it.
Yeah, he starts
Oh,
sucking
yeah.
blood out of her gushing finger.
Yeah.
And then they have him in the back of the paddy wagon and they show up and like he's at the window going, "Ugh, ugh."
And much like Shivers, this reminded me too is that it's an allegory for venereal disease spreading because she's going around, infecting all these men with it and women, and then they'll tell two friends and so on and so on. You know what I mean?
Yeah. The lady on the train is one of my favorite parts too. She's like, uh, like she's feeling it, and you can see her eyes are all red. You know she's a zombie or she's about to become one. And all of a sudden she starts looking at this guy and she's like, and she goes after him and bites him. And she loves it. She's like laughing after they pull her off of him. She's like,
Oh my God, that's hilarious. So final thoughts on Rabid, Bill.
one of my favorite movies of all time. I love to revisit this a couple times a year. There's a couple of beautiful Blu-ray presentations of this movie. Um, it's sort of economically shot. It's not a visually sumptuous film, but there are a lot of great sequences in it that Cronenberg captures, like the car accident. There's a great car accident in it that's just a real gut punch when it happens. That's just one of the moments in this movie that really work. And that's why I would probably put it just a little bit above Shivers, because I think Cronenberg was really learning his craft and as he went. And he was obviously a little bit better in Rabid than he was in Shivers. But I love both of them so much. Rabid's probably a little bit more my favorite out of the two.
Michael?
I found it. Yeah, I liked the tone and the pacing and how straightforward the story was. I suppose my opinion might be a little bit colored by the fact that I watched it, like I had said before, I watched it right before, right after watching Bay of Blood. So I watched them in the same night, and it was different enough that I was like, oh, okay, I felt a little more comfortable with this one. But I was kind of at the end like, well, what was really the point of that? And then I was also kind of thinking, well, how did they even come up with that method for her to, take the blood out of people or whatever? But now listening to what you guys were saying about, the allegory for venereal disease and getting people to be like afraid of each other when they think they might catch something from someone else is, I don't know. I found it entertaining and enjoyable, even though it was a little strange, but it was, excuse me. Sorry. I like the fact that it was different, that it wasn't like her taking bites out of people. I thought it was kind of interesting that they did something different with that.
Cronenberg has a very cold and clinical way of making films that works, especially when he's doing a horror movie. Not all of his movies are horror, but most of them are at this point anyway, or at least some sort of like disturbing element to it. He's really good at that. He gets under your skin, so to speak. And Rabid is no different. Like that's really him honing his craft, is finding the most disturbing, like you mentioned, the method that she chooses. It was just a mind fuck. He's like, how can I make this, like, there's going to be a woman and she has a penis and she uses this penis to basically attack people, and they end up deranged and dead within a matter of days. So that's really I think his comment is that something like that that's communicable in that way could spread so quickly. It doesn't really matter how it happened.
Right.
It's just that this happens to be. And by the way, that ending where they show her dead, obviously, spoiler alert, you see her corpse and she's really disturbingly real looking, this corpse, how frozen she is in place, and dogs are like biting her corpse, and they throw her on the back of a truck. that's doubly disturbing because she's this character that we really felt invested in. At least I did anyway. I felt that she was so vulnerable and which she really needed somebody to look out for her, and she couldn't find somebody. She had to do it on her own, and it got her killed. But she also, the other dual aspect of that is she held the key to beating this disease because she was the one who was immune to it. So, they threw her away like a piece of trash, and really she could have, at least even if she didn't survive, her body could have led to a discovery of an antidote that could have saved these people, but instead she just got thrown away.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed this film. I think it definitely holds up today, and definitely has impact, relatable, like we talked about with the pandemic and stuff, and cleaning things and inoculations and all this stuff. So I highly recommend it. It's very scary. I thought I was terrified, disturbing. But it's a heck of a ride. It's like you said, it is one of Cronenberg's finest films. It was funny too. I can't remember the guy's name, and I don't think I have it on my list here, but there was a guy who was sort of a secondary scientist in Shivers, and he was also somebody's friend in this. And like, I happen to, I don't know, look away.
Joe Silver,
right? And I heard his voice. I was like, wait, I know that voice. And I looked up and I was like, oh my God, it's the guy from Shivers.
He's the one with the infant son. I feel so bad for him because he has such a great relationship with he loves this baby, and of course his family dissolves before his very eyes because it's a horror movie. It's not supposed to be uplifting.
Right. All right. So now we're going to move on to Hellhole from 1985. I'll do a quick synopsis here, which I kind of forgot to do, but thank you, Bill. You did it in the last one. A young woman becomes amnesiac after an attack by a hired killer. She's admitted to a mental asylum run by a ruthless doctor who experiments on her patients with a lethal drug. And her attacker just got employed there. There's also an ancillary building referred to as Hellhole, where there's crazy experiments going on, and an investigator is working undercover trying to reveal the secret of Hellhole. Micah, was this the first time viewing for you?
It was, and the first time I every time you say the title and when I first saw it in the text, I think of this is Spinal Tap because they have a song called Hellhole that they feature briefly in that movie.
Yes.
And as soon as I hear Hellhole, I think of that. But yeah, it was my first time seeing it, and what's her name? Judy Andrews, or what's the name?
Judy Landers.
Judy Landers. She's fucking hot. I've seen her in a few things. I don't know where I've seen her, but when I started watching the movie, I was like, oh, I like her. I hope she doesn't get killed right away. I thought the movie was kind of corny and hokey and very, very lots of gratuitous boobies, and you have to, I guess, take it. That was the first of the 3 movies for this week that I watched, and I kind of was like mentally ready for like a horror movie, and it was kind of I don't know. There's a lot of like stuff that I thought was kind of silly and cliched. I didn't think it was bad, but I thought it was a little bit like, watchable, but overall not a strong cinematic experience.
Bill?
Of course, this is one of my favorite movies too. I wouldn't say I like it as much as the other 2 on this list, but why gauge how much you like something? If you like it, you like it. And I think it's so over the top and crazy. It is extremely silly. It knows it's silly though, and it just sort of goes for it. It's not meant to be taken seriously. I think it's a little bit satirical, in fact, about all these tropes, because this is a women in prison movie mixed with a horror movie.
Right.
Which is really kind of intriguing. And there's also a crime drama. There's a lot of different elements involved in this movie, and it's got so many wonderful people in it. There's no way I couldn't love this movie. The wonderfully sleazy Ray Sharkey, who plays one of the lead villains in Silk, the creepy guy. Of course, Judy Landers, you already mentioned her. She's beautiful, and she's the main character, Susan, in this film, who ends up committed to a mental hospital after Silk kills her mother. who is Lynn Borden from Frogs.
Oh, okay.
The
Okay.
wonderful
Oh,
Lynn
yeah.
Borden, who
Mm.
unfortunately her role is cut short right in the beginning of the film. There's Marjo Gortner's in this.
Marjo, he was in Star Crash, of course.
Yes, one of my faves, Marjo. He's still alive, by the way. I'd love to get him for Drive-In Asylum.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah.
Is he the investigator guy?
No, he was Mary Warnoff's assistant, I guess, or they were
Yeah,
working together
he
on
was.
that.
Oh,
He was one of the other doctors there that wasn't quite as deranged as Mary Warnoff, but he was sort of her accomplice in all of it.
okay.
The wonderful Edie Williams, who was in so many of Russ Meyer's films.
Yep.
I don't know if she was married to Russ Meyer, but I know they were definitely an item for a while. She may have been his wife.
Yes.
An extremely buxom woman, to say the least, as Russ Meyer liked them.
Right. And of course, we have to mention Robert Zadar, who
Mhm.
plays the security guard. And Mike, if you remember, he's the guy that has the giant chin.
My God, that guy's face.
And he was the main character, the villain in the movie Maniac Cop, which came after that.
Oh,
And he died young too, didn't he, Bill? He had because of his deformity, he was what was it, like giantism or something?
He died in 2015, so he didn't die that young.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure why he passed away, to be honest.
Yeah. I think I remember reading at the time that it was something to do with, his health because of why his face was like that. But I should also mention too, Ray Sharkey, he died at age 40. And it's too bad because he's so creepy here. I want to see some of his other movies.
And we already mentioned Mary Warnoff, who we have to talk about a little bit more.
Oh yeah.
She's stunning, a fabulous human being, and she's she's the lead villain, I guess you would call her, in this movie.
yeah.
So evil in this.
She kind of, yeah, she struck me as a tiny bit mannish. I don't know if that was because of her height or her delivery or, the character being kind of distant and, authoritative or whatever, but I was like, okay, yeah, she's attractive, but there's something mannish about her, something masculine about her that.
Yeah, my wife said the same thing. I think it's one of those things too, though. She looks different in a lot of her movies. She's one of those actors that, kind of changes. I don't know, like her face just changes.
Yeah.
She was in Silent Night, Bloody Night.
Yep.
From 1972. She was in Night of the Comet.
Night of the Comet. That's one that I was trying to think.
I saw Silent Night, Bloody Night.
And
did we watch that for the Christmas one?
I think so.
Of course, House of the Devil somewhat more recently anyway. 2009, I think that was Ty West's wonderful homage to 80s horror. She's in that one as well.
2009.
Speaking of 80s, I'm sorry, go ahead.
She was a Warhol superstar.
Oh,
Yep.
wow.
Sorry, go ahead, Michael.
I was gonna say, speaking of 80s stuff, the soundtrack, the music to Hellhole was probably hands down the most enjoyably cheesy 80s kind of like the synthesized drums. And like wow, like it was. I was watching it. I was like, oh god, this music. I could just close my eyes and listen to the music. It's so 80s. Like it was great.
I have that in my notes too. I'm like, love the 80s synth score.
Cliff Emmett was in this as well. Cliff Fatty Emmett, his nickname, not the word I would come up with for him, but Cliff
Did he
Emmett
smoke
was
fatties? Did he smoke a lot of dope? Is that why they called him Fatty?
no, he was a chubby dude.
Oh, he was.
Which
chubby.
that's why I like him. He was in Halloween 2. He was Mr. Garrett in Halloween 2, the security guard.
Oh, right. Okay.
He was in Invasion of the Bee Girls, if you've ever seen that one.
Yes.
He usually didn't have a lead role, and he was a character actor.
Huh.
I'm trying to find the picture. Oh, there it is. I wanted to share this one that Bill, you sent. And I'm going the wrong way.
Oh, the ad for Hellhole. I forgot about that. Yeah, it was marketed as a horror film, which is very fascinating. I mean, I wouldn't call this a horror film, but I don't know, maybe.
Yeah, I wouldn't either.
Yeah, I mean, this is
Well,
once I worked at Blockbuster Video back in the late 80s, early 90s, and it was one of these films that it just looked too disturbing to me. I remember that picture with the doctor holding up the needle and the guy, and it just always disturbed me. I never wanted to watch it. And then I forgot about it till I stumbled across it on Tubi recently, and that's how we kind of came up with putting it on the show here today. Captives, stripped naked, forced to submit to the ultimate experiment, hellhole, prey.
Bill, you said that all three of these movies today were among your favorites. Was that a coincidence, or did you suggest these as a cluster? Or
Rigor picked them.
Oh,
He just knows me so well.
It's just they all just kind of seem to fall together, I guess. So maybe there's something said for that. But one thing I liked about this movie is I liked the whole subplot of the doctor working undercover to expose hellhole and what the scientists were doing, because they said something when he was talking to the whoever he was working with. I don't know if they were the people that were inspectors, and they had made reference to the fact that these Mary Warnoff and perhaps even Marjorie Gortner had done this in another country, and they chased them to America, still trying to expose them. Was that Bill?
I kind of I don't remember that element of it. I'm sure you're right, but yeah, I mean, the suggestion is that they've been doing this for so long. And keep in mind, this was a real concern at this point in history, where if you were confined to a mental hospital, you were likely to be there for the rest of your life. It was hard to get out of a mental hospital, at least for certain people who were committed for various reasons. And another movie that was marketed like this was called The Fifth Floor. If you remember that movie, I think it was from 78. It was another movie about a person who was confined to a mental hospital that was presented like a horror movie, even though it doesn't sound like a horror movie. So Hellhole and The Fifth Floor kind of have the same atmosphere about them, if you will. And it did have a lot to do with that stigma of being in a mental hospital.
Right. And it's great. It's well paced. I thought, like you said, Mike, it's kind of cheesy on purpose. But
Gleefully cheesy.
Yeah, but I think there's not a boring moment in the film. Like from beginning to end, it keeps you going,
Yeah.
It kind of, the tone, no, it's not the same exact kind of film, but the tone kind of reminded me of Blue Monkey that we covered in terms of just sort of being 80s, interesting plot and keeps you going from beginning to end kind of thing.
That was fun. That was a good movie. I like that one.
Yeah.
I love Blue Monkey too.
Yeah.
That's a lot of fun.
Even though like the special effects at the end are not as good as they could be, it still is a very exciting like finale. And I really thought that was well made. Yeah.
There was so much TNA in this movie too.
Oh my God, so much.
I mean, it's basically, sort of like a soft core kind of thing. There's that scene in the Ray Sharkey has a hot tub scene with Edie Williams, and I forget the other actress that's in there with him. But yeah, there were no hot dudes for me, but there were plenty of hot chicks for you two.
I think Michael even texted me, didn't you? And you're like, "Oh, the only thing I remember about Hellhole are all the titties."
The boobies, yeah.
Cliff Emmett aside, he was a hot dude for me, but he wasn't in it for very much, and he wasn't naked, unfortunately.
That's funny.
Unfortunately, that is unfortunate. Yeah, but it's interesting because there was some nudity. There was some female nudity in all three of the movies that we saw for this week, but this one by far had the most.
Yeah. And that mud bath scene was just hilarious. And I think that's where Ray Sharkey's character learns that Mary Warnoff's trying to kill him.
Yeah.
Kind of ruins the mood for him.
Yeah.
What wouldn't she do?
He's all like ready to go. And she's like, well, enjoy it while you can. He's, what is that supposed to mean?
Right.
Means enjoy it while you can. What do you mean? And he gets all that. His character, I think, is like once I had watched it all the way through once, and I realized, as you guys are saying now, that like, oh, they weren't it doesn't take itself seriously, and it wasn't meant to, and I got like, oh, okay, I get the whole, if I had gone in from the very beginning knowing that, so the second time through was better. But what's my point? My point is that uh
Ray Sharkey's character.
yeah, his character, thank you. His character, what was his name? Silk, the guy, the killer.
Silk. Yeah.
He like embodies he's having such a good time not taking his character seriously. And at first I just thought this guy's kind of annoying. But now that I realize that he's perfect for that movie. Like he's just, yeah.
He did what he should have done,
Right,
that's
right.
the way he should have done that performance.
Yeah. The way he, like, even when he's like fighting with the older woman in the kitchen in the beginning, and she picks up a knife and he's grabbing it from her, and I think they went back later and overdubbed like some lines just to have him saying something. It's like, "Are you having a good time? Isn't this fun?" And I was like, "What? Who would say that in the middle of that situation?" But it is funny. And then, like, how slowly she realizes at the end, the main character, what was her name, Susan, when she sees him strangling the other woman.
Oh,
he starts doing like London Bridge is falling down. He starts doing that again, and then she's like, "You killed my mother," and I'm thinking, hallelujah, you finally remembered. You finally put it together.
Yeah, I mean, that was the moment her memories came back because she had the amnesia.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, there's convenient amnesia in this film. I had almost forgotten that.
Very convenient.
That's funny. Mary Warnoff has one of the best lines in this. I think she's saying it to the main chick there. She's getting into the elevator and she goes, "You're gonna wish you were stillborn."
Oh, that's a great line.
Yeah.
She's so deliciously villainous. She loves it. She loves that she's doing this to people.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And then of course Ray Sharkey, spoiler alert, gets an axe in the back. I think it's a horror movie. Like when we saw all the people that had been, I don't even know if you want to call it mutated, but they had
lobotomized.
Yeah. But then weren't there like people that weren't even whole people? They were just, hunks of torsos and shit.
I don't remember that.
I don't remember that.
Yeah.
No, they're kept in cages in the basement, like the people who were so far gone after being lobotomized that they couldn't rejoin society. They just kept them in cages down there, and that was hellhole,
Right.
And of course, Judy Landers ends up down there, and she hasn't been lobotomized yet, and she's sort of like, they're all reaching through the bars with their hands at her like a zombie movie.
It's like a music video almost.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, the beautiful colored lighting. Yeah, kind of like what I have going on here now.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that. Very similar. Yeah. The red and the blue.
Lighting.
But it's one of those movies that's like so like in that exact scene, right? There's people reaching through the bars on both sides of this hallway, and the hallway is like, I don't know, 7 or 8 feet wide, maybe at the most. And so she's leaning against the wall and she feels them grabbing at her. And so she moves forward, and then she gets to the other side and there's arms coming through that side. And so, like a dipshit, she backs straight up into the other arms again that she just came from. And I'm like, you were just there. Like, look where you pay attention to what you're doing, you moron. But it's like, of course, she wasn't, supposed to be like the sharp. It was just kind of to show. It was more, I think they wanted to show how scary and creepy that area was, more than have her like figure out a way to escape it or something.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot to like about this movie. So any other thoughts on it? We'll go into final thoughts here.
This was a movie that I came to on HBO. The first time I saw it was on HBO many years ago, and I wasn't interested in it. It wasn't on my radar as a movie that I had to see, and I was really into it. I just I was hooked from the very first scene where they kill Lynn Borden in her kitchen. So that was really kind of how I came to this movie, and I don't know, I really liked it, even though I didn't expect to.
Yeah. Michael?
Boobies. That's all I have to say. Boobies.
Numerous boobies.
Numerous boobies, many excuses for boobiness in this movie, just arbitrarily. Like, now here's a new scene of two women who are naked, just like the ones in the previous scene, and like they just happen to be, doing drugs or massaging each other or taking a shower together or something, and then before any dialogue happens to move the plot forward, like that's just.
The shower scene where the fight breaks out between the two chicks, and the two chicks that are fighting are the only ones that have panties on. And my wife even goes, well, how come they have panties on, but nobody else does? And my guess was that they probably they got paid more as actresses. So they got to I'm not doing.
Well, also, imagine trying to photograph a shot like that without getting gynecological.
Right,
Let's just say.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Oh my God. The other chick was so mean. She's like, you stay away from her. She's mine.
Oh, when I was watching it again today, this is like so minuscule. It's not even really worth bringing up, but I noticed it. When I was watching it again today, when they're in the shower scene and the one girl goes, calls over to somebody off camera, like, oh, hey, can you bring me some soap? And the blonde woman comes up and goes, you can use mine. And then she says, it's hyperallergenic.
Yes.
I'm like, hypoallergenic. It's hyperallergenic. This is full of stuff that you will react to.
That would be bad.
I just happened to be like watching it, listening to her. It happened to pay like focus on that moment, just arbitrarily just happened to look up and be like, at that moment when she said that, and I was like, wait, what? I don't think she knew what she was saying.
So would you recommend this, Michael?
No, I just found it, boobies aside, I just thought it was so, it was just too corny and cliche for me. And I would probably tell people, unless you're just drunk and you're just tired and you want to put something on and not really pay too much attention to it. And, I wouldn't recommend it. I don't think, personally.
Bill?
Well, I would definitely recommend it, but only if going into it that it's not. I don't know. I look at movies differently. Like I don't actually care if it looks real. I don't care if it makes sense. I care how a movie makes me feel and where a movie takes me. And this movie took me to some places that I had never seen before. So that's why I appreciate Hellhole. It's sort of like, it's a more sanitized version of, I don't know, maybe like what passed for porn in the 60s and like before it got hardcore. Like lesbian subplots and nude wrestling in the shower, like you said, Michael. This really has a lot of exploitation cred, and I love the exploitation element of this. That it's just sort of like it's a no holds barred sort of cheesy movie that's only intended to be shocking and sensational in a really prurient way. So in that way, I highly recommend it. I think it's a lot of fun. And visually, it's a nice movie to look at too, especially the scenes that are filmed inside Hellhole with all the red and blue lighting. I'm really into it.
Yeah.
And all those actors in this film. I mean, there's so many wonderful people in it that I don't know how you could go wrong. That's just me, though.
Yeah, I did like the cast in this. I like this one very much. I think it's a hidden gem. I think it's one of these films that kind of gotten lost in the shuffle over the years because of so many other films. And like you guys pointed out, it's not really a horror movie. It's not really an exploitation movie. It's kind of got to make up its mind. But I think if you go in with that mindset, you'll enjoy it. I thought it was well done and fast paced. I love the whole subplot of the dude undercover investigating Hellhole. That was the aspect that really pulled me towards it. So I would actually recommend it. I think if people have to, like I said, mentally prepare themselves. This is a total tangent, and then we'll wrap things up here. But there's a movie I've been trying to watch on Tubi, and I can only get through 10 minutes at a time until I have to shut it off because I get frustrated with it. And it made me think of you, Bill. That's why I started watching. It's called Doom Asylum. Are you familiar with this film?
Yes, actually. Tell me what you think of Doom Asylum. Why can you only watch it 10 minutes at a
Because it
time?
makes absolutely no sense.
Yeah.
Like at first I didn't realize that the characters were playing things for laughs, but then there's like one, the young good looking dude, and he'll always do something and then he'll counterman himself. Like he'll say, oh, we should go and help her, or maybe we shouldn't. It's like at first I was like, wait a minute, is he serious or is he just stupid? And there's a lot of elements to it that were funny, but then I just the I don't know, the nonsensical silliness after a while just grates on my nerves and I have to shut it off.
It is a comedy,
I didn't know that going into it. I was just like, ooh, Doom Asylum. Oh man, but maybe we'll have to add that to our list for the future. So folks, thank you for joining us again today. And sorry we had to bump it from last week. Hopefully we get you on the repeated viewing. You can put your comments, of course, below the video on Facebook and or YouTube. Bill, tell the folks where they can find you online, please.
Just look at driveinasylum.com. That collects all of my web presence in one place. I publish a fanzine called Drive-In Asylum. I host a weekly live stream called the Drive-In Asylum Double Feature with my creative partner, Sam Panico. And Sam and I have done several commentaries for Blu-ray releases. Only one of them has actually come out yet. It's Suburban Sasquatch, a shot on video Bigfoot movie. And it's just stunning. Check it out.
Wow.
We really loved doing it. We've done a couple commentaries for fun as well. One of them was Messiah of Evil, which is already posted on my YouTube channel, Groovy Doom. We have a new commentary coming out for Folks at Red Wolf Inn, a cannibal romance obscurity from 1972.
Wow.
So look for that in the near future.
Yeah, that's awesome. And of course, my show is The East Meets the West, and then is now podcast, and the Cult Movie Lounge can all be found at havenpodcasts.com. And if you haven't had the chance, check out the films that we talked about today, and we will see you next month on Fright Lounge. So I'm just going to
Bye-bye.
Dream.
Bye. Watch out for women with penises in their armpits.
Yeah.
If you find one, give us their number.
Watch out. Yeah. I know, right? Pure curiosity.